So at this point, I hope you guys have already had a chance to go through this PowerPoint on your own, but now we're going to go through it together just to make sure we don't miss out on any information. So the circulatory system is the title of the PowerPoint, but you will also hear sometimes people refer to this as the cardiovascular system. There is a slight difference. The circulatory system is more a broad term when we're talking about things that circulate or flow through the body. Our first thing to think about that possibly circulates through the body is blood. However, you also have a different fluid that circulates through your body, part of the lymphatic system called lymph. So when we're oftentimes referring to lymph flowing through the body as well, we will say the circulatory system. However, when you're not including that, it's more accurately referred to as the cardiovascular system. However, we're not going to be focusing on lymph and the lymphatic system just yet in 7th grade. So our focus will be on the heart, the blood, and the blood vessels. Now, the heart is a thick piece of cardiac muscle. If you remember back when we did the muscular system, we were talking about cardiac muscle and how special it is in that it's striated or has bands or striations running through the muscular tissue, which makes it extra strong, and it doesn't tire very quickly. So that's extra good because you need your heart throughout your entire life. The function of the heart obviously is to pump blood throughout your body, and the blood has a very important function in that it delivers oxygen to all your cells needed for energy, as well as nutrients that are needed for energy. The blood also picks up waste products such as carbon dioxide from your cells, circulates that carbon dioxide back to your lungs for you to exhale and get rid of that carbon dioxide waste that's produced through the energy process that is cellular respiration that occurs inside all of your mitochondria inside your cells. So the circulatory system keeps the body working by delivering oxygen to the cells and removing carbon dioxide from the cells. Now, oftentimes you'll see the heart depicted in textbooks as being blue on one side and red on the other. That does not mean that your heart is blue and red. Oftentimes, you'll also even hear people say that your blood is blue when it's in your body and low on oxygen. That is not true either. We just show the blood as being blue to indicate that it's low in oxygen, or what we call oxygen poor. And then we depict or show it being red to show that it is oxygen rich, meaning it has lots of oxygen attached to those blood cells. However, it is not really blue. It's always red. Now, it may be a variation of that red, like a deep, dark, deep red when it's oxygen poor and a brighter red when it's oxygen rich. But it's never truly blue. So when we look at our heart, you can see that it has this thick wall of tissue inside of it. That's called the septum. It separates the right side from the left side. Our heart is actually divided into 4 hollow chambers called atria and ventricles. You have the right atrium and the left atrium, the right ventricle and the left ventricle. Now, what I want you to notice too is that when we're looking at this model of the heart, the right side is labeled as being like your left side. The left side is labeled as being like your right side. But anatomically speaking, you have to think about if this heart was in someone's body. If this heart was in a person's body and they were facing you, this would be their right side and this would be their left side. So the 4 chambers are the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atrium, and the left ventricle. Now, the plural for atrium is atria, so sometimes you'll see that written as atria. Now, when blood is leaving the heart, it leaves out of special blood vessels that are called arteries. Arteries take blood away from the heart. Think of arteries as starting with an A, so they carry blood away. The largest artery in the body is the aorta. It's at the top of the heart, and it delivers oxygen-rich blood out to the rest of the body. Another important artery attached to your heart is called the pulmonary artery. Anytime you hear the word pulmonary, you should think of your lungs. That's what the word pulmonary refers to. So the pulmonary artery is going to carry blood that is low in oxygen and is high in carbon dioxide from your heart to your lungs, so that your lungs can exhale, or you can breathe out that carbon dioxide, and then you can pick up oxygen, and that oxygen-rich blood can return back into the heart. to be pumped out to the rest of the body. Now, the three important veins that are attached to the heart are the inferior vena cava, the superior vena cava, and the pulmonary vein. Superior means above and inferior means below. So here is the superior vena cava, where here is the inferior vena cava. They're both going to bring oxygen-poor blood that has just been out to the body and circulate it back into the heart. That oxygen-poor blood is going to travel from the right atrium down into the right ventricle. Then that blood is going to be pumped up through the pulmonary artery out to the lungs. The blood then picks up oxygen and circulates back through the pulmonary vein. Remember, pulmonary means lungs. So this blood is now coming back from the lungs, is oxygen rich because it picked up oxygen, and it's traveling back into this side of the heart. It's going to go through the left atrium, down into the left ventricle. The heart is going to squeeze, and it's going to pump that oxygen-rich blood back out to the body through the aorta. Now, inside your heart, you also have what are called valves. Valves are thin pieces of tissue that make sure that the blood always circulates in the same direction. You don't want your oxygen-rich blood mixing with your oxygen-poor blood. So blood has to always follow the same path through the heart, like a circuit, kind of like a figure eight motion. So the valves ensure that this always happens. Now, sometimes people can have trouble with their valves, and if that happens, you may see a sign or a symptom of weakness or lethargy, meaning that they're getting very tired very easily because they're not getting as much oxygen-rich blood pumped to their body as they should. So the blood that is over here, the valve that is over here on the right side of the heart is called the tricuspid valve, meaning it has three cusps or tips. The one that is on this side of the heart, which is the left side of the heart, is called the bicuspid valve. And those valves, again, will keep or ensure that blood is traveling in the same direction at all times. And the pulmonary valves are going to be located in the pulmonary artery, and that lets the right ventricle fill and then release the blood into the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary pulmonary artery, I'm sorry. Then the aortic valve is going to be found in the aorta and ensure that the blood is always traveling from the aorta out to the rest of the body. And as we mentioned earlier, the septum just divides those two halves of the heart. So as I mentioned, there are three kinds of blood vessels: arteries carrying blood away from the heart. Veins circulate blood back to the heart. So typically veins are going to be carrying oxygen-poor blood. Since that blood has already been to the body, it's dumped off its oxygen, and as the blood circulates back to the heart, it's coming back as being oxygen-poor. The capillaries are teeny tiny blood vessels that allow transport between the two, and they deliver low oxygen blood to the veins. Now, speaking of blood, your blood is really more complicated than you realize. The majority of your blood is made up of a liquid portion called plasma, which contains some proteins and other micronutrients floating around in it. It's typically a yellow color, but mostly made of water. Then floating in that liquid component of the blood, you have three solid components. You have red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Red blood cells are kind of donut shaped, indented in the center, and they carry oxygen to all your cells. And they have a little thing called hemoglobin, and hemoglobin has iron in it, and iron and hemoglobin allow that oxygen to attach to your red blood cells. Now, white blood cells help your body fight disease or infection, and you actually have way more red blood cells than you do white blood cells. Now, your white blood cell count is going to go up or get higher when you're fighting infection, bacteria, and other germs that enter your body. And hopefully they'll fight that off quickly for you to recover. And then platelets are going to be our body's way of clotting. Clotting when we have some type of injury. And platelets produce this material called fibrinogen. Fibrinogen acts like a net or a spider web that'll shoot out, and then the red blood cells will get caught in that and it causes clotting. So it prevents excessive bleeding. Now, as we mentioned earlier, most of your blood is made of plasma. Actually, 55% of it is made of plasma, and 90% of that plasma is made of water. So that's the liquid part of your blood. Now, you guys have all heard us talk about blood types before. You can be one of 4 blood types, type A, B, AB, or O. The majority of people are type O, but then the second most common blood type is type A. Now, if you are type O, you are what we call the universal donor. It's like your blood cells are blank slates, so everyone can accept your type of blood. So it's great if you're the type O blood because you can give blood to everyone. However, you can only receive blood from people who are type O as well. So even though you're the universal donor, you can only accept blood from other people who are O, which is kind of okay though, because that's what the majority of people are. Type A blood, when you look at red blood cells underneath a microscope, they have these little protein factors on the outside of them that are called antigens. And if red blood cells have what we call A antigens, then you are type A blood. So if you have type A blood, you can accept blood from other people that are type A, but you can also take type O because remember, it's like a blank slate. 42% of people in the population have type A blood. Type B blood is a little less common, or very much less common. Only 10% of people have type B blood, and they have B antigens on the outside of their red blood cells. They can accept B blood from other people, and they also accept O blood as well. And if you are type AB blood, you have both A and B antigens on the outside, so you can take A blood, you could take B blood, you could have AB blood and O blood. So you're what we call the universal recipient if you have type A blood because you can receive blood from everyone. Also, you'll hear sometimes people talk of being A positive or A negative, B positive or B negative. The positive and the negative just indicates whether you have something that's called an RH factor. The RH factor is named the RH factor because it's named after the first organism that we found this protein in called a rhesus monkey. So the rhesus monkey had the RH factor, and it was also determined that humans have the RH factor. Now, if you have the RH factor or that extra protein in your blood, you are called RH positive. If you don't have it, you're RH negative. Now, when your blood circulates throughout your body, it is filtered throughout your body through 4 mechanisms. You have your liver, your kidneys, your lymph nodes, and your spleen. All filter your blood to make sure that any kind of toxins or any bacteria or anything that could possibly be in your blood that shouldn't be there, they'll try to get those out for you as it circulates through your body. And this is the order in which blood moves through your heart. Remember, I said it always has to move in the same pattern or direction. So it goes in through the right atrium, down through the tricuspid valve and right ventricle. Then your heart is going to squeeze and it's going to push that blood up through the pulmonary valve, out through the pulmonary arteries, to the lungs and back through the pulmonary veins, into the left atrium, down through the mitral valve, into the left ventricle. Then it's going to squeeze again, go through the aortic valve and out through the aorta to the rest of the body. Now, valves aren't only found in your heart, the valves are also found in your legs because when blood gets down to the bottom of your body, gravity is working against the blood for it to try to get back up to the heart. So you've got to have veins that contain valves down inside your legs that'll push that blood back up towards your heart. And those valves work best in our veins if we're moving. So it's very important that we move around a lot every day to improve our circulation and get that blood back to our heart. It's also important for our heart that we move. It's good exercise called aerobic exercise that increases our cardiac output. So it's really important that you're getting up and moving around to get that blood flowing through your body and keeping that cardiac muscle healthy, as well as all parts of your body. Now, in our circulatory system, we can sometimes have disorders, one of the most common being high blood pressure, also known as hypertension. This is when you have extra pressure pushing against the walls of your arteries, which can put strain on your heart as it's trying to push through. What usually causes high blood pressure is cholesterol buildup or plaque, what we call, inside of our arteries that can make our arteries narrowed or constricted. So it makes it harder for that blood to flow through our arteries. Now, your normal blood pressure is supposed to be about 120/80, and it says this is top number is your systolic number and the bottom number is your diastolic number. And a way to keep that blood pressure down is exercise and healthy diet, not eating high fatty foods.